Ray Ratto, NBC Sports Bay Area insider, had a column today talking about the Oakland Raiders. And I know it's only one game, Ray, but boy, we love to overreact. What are the locals thinking about their Oakland Raiders?
Oh, they're overreacting.
Yeah?
I mean, well, first of all, it's federal law. You're supposed to. Secondly, it's the only reason people pay attention to anything anyway. You know, I need to know what to think after 3 minutes of information. I mean, that is the culture now. We're in a hurry. So, no, well, it's a little different with the Raiders, though, in fairness, because the fans are operating on a timeline that John Gruden isn't. John Gruden, when he took the job, said he wanted to bring a championship to Oakland, which meant within the next 2 years because they're moving to Las Vegas. Well, everything he's done since then has indicated pretty loudly that he intends to tear down what the Raiders had, for good or ill, and aim toward 2020 or 2021 as the year when his team will be fully in place. So I think that there's a clear disconnect between what he wants to do as the practical, cynical football guy and what the fans thought he wanted to do when they fell in love with him the day he got hired. So it's not so much an overreaction. It's almost like a weird sort of, broken heart sort of thing. I mean, I don't think they had any illusions that this was going to be a phenomenal year. But when they traded Khalil Mack, all of a sudden, it suddenly hit everybody. Oh, my God, we're going to go 5-11 again. We always go 5-11. He was supposed to be the guy who ended 5-11, and here we are again. So I think it's more that than it is overreaction. But, yes, they would like to strangle him today if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and I said this yesterday that I didn't think the Raiders were going to do anything the next 2 years, that you have the oldest roster in the NFL. You traded away Khalil Mack because you don't want to – there's no reason to spend that money on that guy and have him play for you over the next couple of years because you're not going to be ready to go. And when you get to Las Vegas, I guess my big question is when you get to Vegas, is Derek Carr still your quarterback, Ray?
Well, that's suddenly become an open question because he looked comprehensively awful Monday night. There were excuses for a couple of the 3 interceptions, and they were playing a clearly superior team in the Rams, which is probably the one part of the overreaction that is truly overreaction. It's unlikely that Derek Carr is going to see a defense as good as that one the rest of the way. But, again, with Raider fans, this is about we have 2 years to get something out of this. Because the 25 years that the Raiders have been in Oakland since they came back in 1995 have been mostly awful. And they'd like to get a little bit for their investment before they go watch it go to Nevada. So, I mean, that's what's tinging a lot of this for Raider fans, at least in California, which is we don't have a lot of time with these guys left, and we don't want to see what we've seen for most of the last 2 decades.
John Gruden was a little sensitive, I think, with the interview with Lisa Salters prior to the game on Monday night, where he was giving his opinion that Khalil Mack never wanted to be there. I guess my thought was, well, does that mean Aaron Donald did not want to be with the Rams? Because they were sort of doing the same thing. It's just the Rams are ready to win now. The Raiders are not. Therefore, Aaron Donald, we're going to pay you because we may win a Super Bowl, and we're not paying Khalil Mack because we're not going to be a playoff team. What did you make of Gruden?
I think there's a lot of that. I think he was viscerally offended by the fact that Khalil Mack didn't come racing into his arms the day of the press conference. So, I mean, I think there's some of that. I think there's some of that old school, well, if you're not here when I want you here, it means you don't want to be here at all. That sort of way that coaches have of positioning players who don't leap high when they bark. So I think there was some of that, too. But anybody who believes what a coach says at any given moment on any given subject simply hasn't been paying attention for the last 40 years. I mean, just if you're going to listen to coaches expecting wisdom, just save the effort and sit home and drink. You're better off.
He's Ray Ratto, NBC Sports Bay Area insider. turn our attention to the 49ers because there were great expectations, lofty expectations, and all of a sudden you face a very good Minnesota team. So where are Niner fans today?
They're a little less delusional about the overreaction stuff because I think everybody knew that Minnesota was clearly better, and they're playing in Minnesota, and I don't think if they gave a moment of rational thought to it that they thought that Jimmy Garoppolo would never lose a game. So I think in that way, they were disappointed because he didn't look very good, and they saw some of the flaws that this team still has because it's already in its rebuild mode. But I think if they don't look good this week, then you'll start getting the overreactions. I mean, 49er fans are a little late on that, but I think they can rally and overreact with the best of them if you give them one more bad performance.
Yeah, I just thought that just because and Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers during that 5-game winning streak to close out last season, they weren't great numbers. I mean, they were Kaepernick-esque, and all of a sudden we're going to crown him with a big contract and expectation level of 8-9 wins this year. What do you think is realistic for them?
Realistic, I think, for them is 7-9 or 8-8. But remember, Jimmy Garoppolo's got to clear the high bar that was set by Blaine Gabbert a year ago. So, anything that was better than that with this team was going to look phenomenal. The weird thing about 49er fans is they think that every quarterback who's in their employ is Joe Montana and Steve Young. Well, they couldn't figure out how to enjoy Alex Smith. They loved Colin Kaepernick with all their internal organs until all of a sudden he was on a bad team. Then they hated him, and now it's a whole different argument on a whole different level. So when Garoppolo came in, they said, well, we know he's better than Blaine Gabbert, and we think we swindled Bill Belichick. So all of a sudden, Garoppolo is that guy. He's the future because he's way better than we had, and we basically, stole the Patriots' wallet to get him. So I think he came in with expectations that were higher than they ought to be. I mean, he may still turn out to be pretty good, but without a running back, which is key to remember here because Jerick McKinnon got hurt, without a running back, they're going to be one-dimensional, and they don't have the kind of wide receivers to get away with it. So I think they're going to struggle some. I mean, they're not a playoff team to my mind, but then again, I thought the Raiders would go 15-1 without Khalil Mack.
Your snark is alive and well early in the morning here, Ray. We appreciate that.
Well, I poured a cup of coffee in my eye, and I was ready to go for you.
Always great to talk to you, Ray. Thank you. You still have the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I think we'll get by with them for a couple more years, but the deterioration you can already see is coming. Jonas Jerebko is going to be a real problem.
Yeah, I can tell. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks for coming.
That's Ray Ratto, NBC Sports Bay Area Insider.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.
Oh, he's great.